Hello. So coming at you from a different location, very different than my normal videos. I have been wanting to sit down and film this video for you guys, but the thought of going into my room and turning on the lights and just being super formal about this it sounds like torture right now. So I'm coming at you from my couch. Hopefully it's not too echoey in here. I'm very cozy. I've got my sweatshirt on because it's Monday Night Football tonight and my Bengals are playing. Can we get a win, please? Fingers crossed. And yeah, we're just gonna talk about some fall book recs. Now, some of these are gonna be kind of on the nose fall, and some of them are just books that give me sort of that fall vibe, fall feeling. So not necessarily like all of these books take place in fall. All of these books are cozy or spooky, or you know what I mean. Just they feel fall to me, and that's okay. So we're just gonna get started. I should probably introduce myself. My name is Sam, if you're new here. Hi. Not my normal location, like I said, but we're being cozy, extra cozy for this video. So fall recs. The first two books that I want to share with you are kind of darker, grittier fantasy romance books. So the first book that I have is Reign of Shadows and Endings by Melissa K. Roehrich. Now, in my September mid-month wrap-up that went up last week, I said, I think I'm broken because I don't feel, for me personally, that this book was as dark as everyone was making it out to be. And I thought that Theon, who is our hero, at first was nice to our heroine. Okay, he was. So in this world, we have the legacies who are descendants of gods. And the Fae in this world are basically servants to these legacies in different ways than one. Now, every year, I believe, there is a sort of selection that happens. And the Fae, typically that are going up for selection, they will know, and they've been prepared for this. Now, Tessa, she is not prepared for this selection at all. She does not think that she's ever really going to be a Fae that is going to be chosen to be bonded to a legacy. And now when you are bonded to a legacy, I guess it kind of just depends on the legacy that you are paired with. Now, this is a bond where if, like, especially at first, if you get too far away from each other, the bond doesn't like that. It craves physical attention, physical touch, and basically the Fae are bonded to the legacy to help enhance the legacy's power. The legacy can take power from a Fae. But of course, some of the legacy will abuse this bond and, you know, they'll do sexual favors. They're not very nice. They're seen as lesser than, and the Fae just aren't treated very well by their bonded legacy. And so the selection that happens, that's where the legacy will choose their Fae, who they want to be bonded with. And this is something that people take very seriously. It's something that, you know, the Fae are very much prepared for in the legacy. They research these Fae and who they want to be bonded with. So like I said, Tessa does, like, she's not up for selection. She doesn't think she's going to be selected, but she runs across Theon in kind of a hall while or before this selection takes place. And he's like, yeah, I want her. And she does not like that. She does not want to be bonded with Theon. And because of that, their bond never fully sets in place, and they don't know why, and it's causing Tessa like physical pain. She becomes very ill because of it. And so you spend this whole book trying to figure out why their bond is different, why their bond hasn't taken yet. And like, is Tessa different? Is she really a Fae, or is there more going on? Now, like I said, I am a little broken because this was not as dark as I thought it was going to be. But please check your trigger warnings, okay? Listen to everyone else and don't listen to me. There is definite mental health struggles that go on in here. Tessa goes through a lot, and she has gone through a lot, especially growing up. And there is a very dark scene towards the end of this book that Theon does. He does something pretty bad to Tessa, and it puts her in a really, really dark place. So again, do not listen to me. Check your trigger warnings. I'm just broken, okay? Okay, so the next book that I have is The Book of Azriel by Amber v. Nicole. Now this is book 1 in a series. Also, Reign of Shadows and Endings is book 1 in a series as well. I should have mentioned that. So in this book, we are following Diana and Liam. Now, Diana ends up selling her soul to save her sister's life. Her sister is dying, and she loves her sister more than anything in this world. And the man that she sells her soul to, that saves her sister, she is indebted to him for the rest of her life. And she's immortal now, so she is basically at his beck and call. He has her doing some, I don't want to say like hard tasks, because for her, they're not, I mean, like they do take a toll on her, but she's basically like his little errand boy. Like, he will have her go and basically scare people if they don't do what he wants them to do. Like, if people don't show up to meetings, she'll go and, you know, what are you doing? Or he sends her to kill people. And he has also been looking for this book, which is the Book of Azriel. And that is where Liam comes in. Now, Liam is a god, and he has been awoken because they do not want Diana's boss to find this book. And so Diana and Liam actually pair up. So Diana goes against her boss, which does not end well. But they pair up and they try to find this book before her boss can get it. This is a slow burn, enemies to lovers. I loved how their relationship developed in here. It felt very genuine. They opened up to each other. They both understood each other in a way that no one else really did. And as far as plot-wise, this is super fast-paced. There's a lot going on in here. You really have to pay attention to this world. A lot of world building, a lot of just different things come into play in this book, and the romance being really good on top of that. I really, really enjoyed this one. So if you have not read this book yet, now's the time to check it out. So the next 2 books that I have are going to be football romances. Football and fall, they go hand in hand, okay? Because that's when football season actually starts. So anytime I read like a football romance, it's fall to me, okay? I don't make the rules, it's just fall. The first one I have to recommend to you, I did put this in another video, but it's so good, and it has one of my favorite tropes, so I'm gonna recommend it again in case you didn't listen to me the first time. This is Rally by Devney Perry. This is, I believe, book 3 in the Treasure State Wildcat series, and this is a college romance. So we're following Faye and Rush Ramsey. Now, Rush is the star quarterback of the Treasure State Wildcats football team, and Faye is struggling to make ends meet. Her father has never really been in the picture, and her mother just does not know how to love. And so she's really just had a very rough life where she's not been shown a lot of love or support. And when the book starts out, she's actually living with her ex-boyfriend in a trailer, and things just aren't going very well. And she's working at a diner, trying to pay for school and pay the bills and just make ends meet. And she also has a sister who she's very involved in her life, and she wants better for her. She kind of tries to pick up the slack from their mom. And her and Rush end up meeting one night. They have a one-night stand, and then Faye gets pregnant. So this is a surprise pregnancy, accidental pregnancy. And once Faye's ex-boyfriend finds out that she's pregnant with another man, he kicks her out. And so that kind of leaves Faye with nowhere to go. But Rush steps in and says, you can come live with me. The only problem is he has like 3 other roommates living in the house, all guys, all on the football team. And Faye doesn't really get along with one of his roommates, so that really makes things difficult for her and for Rush as well, because it's his best friend. But the way that Rush steps up, and not just Rush's parents step up and help Faye, I loved so much. He really was all in. He really just wanted to be there for Faye and help her in any way that he could. And he wasn't very pushy about it either, which I really liked, because Faye, she has a hard time accepting help because, you know, she's just so used to doing it on her own. And so I really loved just the genuine nature of their relationship. Very mature as well, especially for this being a college romance. The way that these two handled things, very mature. And overall, this is just a solid romance, and I really enjoyed this one. And next up for football romance, we have False Start by Kandi Steiner. This is book 5 in her Red Zone Rivals series. And in this book, we are following Kyle and Madeline. This one is a second chance single mom romance. So Kyle and Madeline knew each other in high school. They had a relationship, and then some things happened that never really were resolved between either one of them. Kyle and his family just sort of up and left, and Madeline thought she knew why, and she was really hurt by it. And then Kyle, basically there was just some miscommunication. Kyle thought that she really wanted nothing to do with him anymore, and so he didn't talk to her, didn't tell her why they were moving. And then, like I said, Madeline had a reason why she thought Kyle wanted nothing to do with her. And so it's years later. Madeline is a realtor, and she is meeting with a potential client. And this potential client just so happens to be Kyle, who has been picked up by, a pro football team. I think, is it in Seattle, I believe? And when she gets there and she sees that it's him, she's like, oh no, because all these feelings start coming back, and she does not have the best feelings towards him. And Kyle is like joking around and thinking that things are going to be fine. And, you know, how are you doing? How are things? And she's like shutting it down. She's like, this is strictly business. I'm going to sell you this house. I'm going to get the commission, and then my son and I are getting the hell out of here, because her ex-husband is abusive. So this does definitely have trigger warnings for an abusive relationship. So Kyle ends up asking her out to dinner though, and he sees some bruises on her arm, and immediately he's like, what is going on? And so these two end up striking up a fake relationship, because Kyle does not want Madeline to be around her ex-husband without him. He thinks he can sort of be a buffer between them, that if I'm with you and he thinks that you are in a relationship, he won't hurt you anymore. But Kyle also, he has been seen by the friend group as sort of this playboy, doesn't have serious relationships ever. And so he wants to go to actually Clay and Gianna from Blindside. He's going to their wedding, and he asks her to come and be his plus one, but pretend that they are in this very serious relationship. And so because of their history, feelings start coming back up immediately, and they fall into a very easy and comfortable friendship. And then that leads to them falling in love again. And I really loved seeing Kyle with her son. I thought it was really adorable. I loved how protective he was of Madeline, and really how they ended up resolving everything, especially from their past, and they realized what happened and really all the time that they could have had together, but they didn't because shitty people in their lives. So yeah, again, this one was really good. And yeah, if you can read it because of the subject matter, I highly recommend it. Okay, so now we're gonna get into some more paranormal-ish books. This first book that I have, when I read this book, I was obsessed with it, and I think I recommended this a few times in some older videos. I don't think they're up anymore, but I'm gonna bring this one back up because I had so much fun when I read this book, and that is Feral Sins by Suzanne Wright. So this is a werewolf shifter romance, and we're following Taryn and Trey. Now, Taryn is I believe a latent wolf, so she hasn't been able to change into her like wolf form for a very long time. And because of that, her dad actually wants to mate her off to a alpha of a pack, the Phoenix pack, I believe. And his name is Trey. And Trey and Taryn butt heads so much because they both have this alpha dominance to them. And so they're fighting constantly for that, you know, control. Had to find the word there. This one, because I read it so long ago, I don't remember too much about the plot of it, but I remember really liking it and having a really good time with it. It's definitely steamy, and Trey is definitely possessive. I do remember though at the end, it does have one of my favorite tropes like towards the end of this book. So, surprise pregnancy. Spoiler alert, it's surprise pregnancy. But yeah, again, just your typical like paranormal werewolf shifter romance that I really love reading around this time of year. And I think a lot of you do too. So if you haven't read Feral Sins yet, please do so. And I believe I've read book 2 in this series as well, and I really enjoyed it. I need to continue on though. So that might be something that I do this year because, again, it was super fun. Okay, and then the next one I actually just finished, and now I wouldn't say that this one is paranormal. Nocticadia by Kerri Lake. I buddy read this with McKay, and I had a ton of fun with this book. I have had this book on my TBR though for so long, but it's been really intimidating to me. This is a long book, very long, very chunky book, and I'm like, oh, I don't know if I want to get into it yet. When I tell you this book is so easy to read, it is so easy to follow. If you've wanted to read this book and you just haven't because of the sheer size of it, don't be afraid of it anymore. Pick it up. It's so good. So in this book, we are following Lilia and Devrick. Now, Lilia is actually attending a small community college, and she writes a paper about this fictional disease. And when she gives it to her professor, he immediately recognizes the similarities to a disease that is studied at Nocticadia University, which is a very prestigious university. And he actually ends up submitting her paper to Nocticadia University, and they want her to come and study there. So she gets a full ride scholarship to Nocticadia. But it turns out that the fictional disease that she wrote about, I mean, it actually is a disease, like I said, and her mother passed from it. So she goes to this university because obviously it's an amazing experience, but she wants to find out more about her mother and how she was infected with this disease and just like what happened. And that's where she meets Devrick, or Professor Bramwell. He is her professor. So yes, this is student-teacher forbidden romance. Very slow burn, okay? Very, very slow burn. But Professor Bramwell, Devrick, is like the head of the research that is done about this disease, parasite, what have you. And so she actually starts assisting him a little bit in his lab. The romance in here is really good, but also I think my favorite thing though about this book is how atmospheric it was. It felt very gothic, very dark and gloomy. There is some sort of gruesome scenes in here. Yeah, Devrick is not a very good man. He's willing to do whatever it takes for his research. And so that does lead to, like I said, some pretty gruesome scenes in here and situations, but this was a fun read. You really couldn't put it down. It's very dark, very atmospheric, and I had a lot of fun reading this. So if you haven't read it, now's the time. The perfect fall, sort of spooky book. There's a mystery plot going along in here too. So definitely like there's a lot going on, but like I said, it's super easy to understand, super easy to follow, and it's a standalone, so you don't have to wait for another book and you don't have to read another thick book. Highly recommend this one. Okay, now we're gonna get into some horror books. I love reading horror books around this time of year. I think they're fun, okay? I'm a weirdo and I like to read horror books. So the first one I have is A Headful of Ghosts by Paul Tremblay. This one I read quite a few years ago, but it has stuck with me. So we are following this family, and at first, one of the daughters, they think that she is just sick. She's having some very weird symptoms, but it kind of turns sort of sinister, and her father believes that she is possessed, and they're very Christian, and so they call in someone to do an exorcism, perform an exorcism on her. But there's also a TV crew that has found out about this, and they are filming the entire thing. The mother does not necessarily agree with the dad, and she tries to take the daughter to therapy. But the father's very adamant, like, do not do that. I will fix this. Like, we will fix this. She's possessed. There's some very crazy things that happen in this book. Very crazy things that happen. This is a pretty short book too, so it took me probably less than a day to get through this. I could not stop reading it. And the ending of this book, my jaw was on the floor. I'm like, what? So definitely, if you're looking for creepy vibes, that's kind of gonna scare you and just shock you, pick this one up. I don't hear enough people talk about this book, and it's so freaking good. It's so good. And the next horror that I have, I actually read this recently, and that is We Used to Live Here. Now, this takes place in winter. So I know some of you are probably like, isn't that a winter book? You can read it really any time of the year, but this is wild. Okay, so we are following, I don't even remember her name. Charlie. Yeah, so Charlie and Eve are recently engaged. They have bought this house that they are planning to flip and then sell, but they're living in it currently. And one night, Eve is out to work and Charlie is home alone, and she gets this knock on the door, and it's a family at the door. And the father says, I used to live here when I was younger, and my family and I are in town, and we're driving by, and I just wondered if we could come in and take a look around. I could show, my kids and my wife where I grew up. And at first Charlie's like, I don't think so, but she's a people pleaser, so she ends up letting them in the house, and they keep finding ways to stay in the house. And it's little things at first, like the daughter plays a game of hide and seek and she refuses to come out, and then the weather permits them from leaving one night, and then it's just like one thing after another, and then it starts to get very weird. That's all I'm gonna say about this book. This, again, the ending of this book, jaw on the floor. On the floor. I still don't really know what I believe happened in this book. I don't know. But it was really good. It's one of those books that it makes you think. You're like, oh, okay. It's so good. Please read it. Okay, and the last book that I have to recommend to you guys is a historical fiction book, and that is The Sweetness of Forgetting by Kristen Harmel. Now, this one does actually take place in fall, and we are following Hope. And Hope has been going through a lot recently. Her mother has passed. She is going through a divorce. Her and her daughter's relationship is a little bit strained at the moment. Her daughter is 14 years old, and she's just very hormonal, but also she's not dealing very well with the divorce. And Hope actually owns a bakery, and it's been in her family for generations, but it's not doing so well. And so the bank is threatening to come and take it away. And Hope's grandmother also is dealing with Alzheimer's, and it is getting much worse, and they know that they won't have much more time with her. So her and her daughter, they try to go and spend as much time as they can with her. And one night, her grandmother gives her this list of names, and she says, please find them. And so Hope starts doing some research, and that research leads her to Paris. And so Hope decides to go to Paris to find who she believes to be her relatives, and she finds out the story of her grandmother and how she survived Paris in World War II and how she came to America and what happened to her family. And she ends up finding love along the way and finding family members who, you know, they didn't know that she existed and she didn't know that they existed. This one is very atmospheric. You definitely feel like you are in Paris, and I think something pretty unique about this one that I have not read a lot of in really any book, and especially a historical fiction, because Hope does own a bakery. This is very heavy in like baked goods and different things like that, and how food kind of can bring everyone together, and it, you know, memories can be made from it. And yeah, it's a very big part of the book. And so you just feel it's a very cozy feeling book, even though it deals with some heavy subject matter. I really enjoyed this one. And the ending, how it wrapped up, was beautiful. So if you're looking for a historical fiction to read for this time of year, try this one out. Okay, so that is all for my fall book recs. The next video will be in my normal filming location. I hope you don't mind this little, you know, different setup. If you have made it to this point in the video and you'd like to let me know, leave me a fall leaf emoji. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you next time.